Well, good afternoon, California. Let me add the panel's congratulations to making it to today. This is very exciting, I'm sure, for you, and it's exciting for us. And we're looking very much forward to continuing this discussion on topic 2. My name is Andy Levy. I'm a trial lawyer from Baltimore, Maryland, and I also teach at the University of Maryland School of Law.
I'm John Kaminsky, Director of the Center for the Study of the American Constitution at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. I'm looking forward to my second hearing with you.
My name is Madeline Dunn, and I'm an historian with Delaware's Division of Historical and Cultural Affairs, and it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon.
Hello, we are Unit 2 from Arcadia High School in Arcadia, California. Our unit focuses on the framers and how they created the Constitution. Before we introduce ourselves individually, we would like to acknowledge and thank our coach, Mr. Kevin Fromm.
Congratulations.
Hello, I'm Bonnie Tam.
Hello, my name is Michael Callan.
Good afternoon, my name is Joanna Shen.
Hi, my name is Derek Ha.
Good afternoon, my name is Winston Chang.
Well, thank you for that, and I know there's not much suspense as to which question it is, but I will go ahead and read it for the benefit, certainly of the visitors and guests, since they're not as familiar with it as, of course, you are. It begins with a quote from R.B. Bernstein. Although posterity has tended to emphasize the work of the Constitution's framers in the Federal Convention of 1787, the ratification of the U.S. Constitution in 1787 and 1788 was a landmark in the history of government. What evidence can you offer to support or dispute this claim? In what ways, if any, was the plan for ratification an example of social contract theory? And what precedents were established by the ratification process, and why have they continued to be important?
The ratification of the Constitution was a landmark or momentous event in the history of government. The framers proposed nothing more than a document in Philadelphia, but it was ratification which legitimized what they'd created.
Per the doctrines of popular sovereignty and express consent, Americans established what Akhil Amar dubbed preamble-style ratification. They ordained and established a constitution by electing delegates to state ratification conventions pursuant to Article 7.
We recognize, however, that it was not the first time a constitution was ratified via express consent. Massachusetts introduced this concept on the state level in 1780.
The 1787-90 ratification debates, however, took place on an unprecedented and national scale, primarily by means of the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers. Literacy rates were as high as 90% in some regions, so many had access to their papers. They were also read aloud in taverns and coffee houses, further expanding the debate.
We also acknowledge that the ratification process was at times tainted. In Pennsylvania, for example, Federalists violently dragged Anti-Federalists into the Assembly to form a quorum and call a convention. Nevertheless, we agree with Alexander Hamilton's assertion in Federalist Number 1 that Americans were the first to establish good government from reflection and choice.
The ratification process exemplifies fundamental principles of social contract theory, popular sovereignty, and the right to revolution.
By ordaining and establishing the Constitution, Americans entered into a contract to live under a new government. Because government is established for the benefit of the people, as Locke argued in his second treatise, the people were the rightful creators of their Constitution.
Locke also asserts that legitimate government derives its power from the people themselves. This was reaffirmed by Article 7's requirement that the Constitution be ratified by popularly elected conventions.
Moreover, ratification fulfilled the ideal of Lockean right to revolution. In 1776, with the Declaration of Independence, the Second Continental Congress altered and abolished the existing government, replacing British colonial rule with the Articles of Confederation.
In 1787, after experiencing the inefficiencies of the Articles, the people of America instituted new government with the Constitution, providing for a second, non-violent revolution.
Federalists, in fact, often compare the Union under the Articles of Confederation to a quasi-state of nature, as exemplified in papers 1 through 14. In light of crises like Shays' Rebellion, John Jay wrote in Federalist Number 2 that nothing is more certain than the indispensable necessity of government.
Ratification was also significant because of the precedents or substantial guides it provided. The peaceful and voluntary transfer of power and the creation of new government based upon the people's supreme authority.
Because the power to form a more perfect union was turned over to the people, the Articles of Confederation peacefully gave way to the Constitution. In an unprecedented move, the Confederation Congress voluntarily surrendered its power in a domesticated revolution which completely replaced the national government.
Moreover, all Americans provided with a symbolically profound model of ratification, submitting the Constitution to the people for approval. Today, it is almost expected for a constitutional democracy or republic to institute a new form of government through popular sovereignty. 46 of the 50 current state constitutions, for example, were ratified through some form of popular vote.
This idea has also been influential internationally. In 1988, the people of South Korea adopted a new constitution via a national referendum. Ultimately, while the events of the Philadelphia Convention are crucial, the ratification of the Constitution was just as important a landmark. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me begin by asking you about the arguments of the Anti-Federalists during the ratification process, and what were their principal arguments against the ratification, and do you think any of them were correct?
Well, one anti-federalist we can look at is Roger Sherman, or during the convention, he was considered a states fighter. One of his main arguments was that the people were ignorant. Therefore, he believed that ratification should not be given to the people, rather instead given to state legislatures.
To clarify what Bonnie said, Roger Sherman supported the Constitution, but during the convention, he was against the proposed ratification process. But I would look to the arguments of anti-federalists in the Massachusetts Convention, including General Thompson. And basically, this exemplified a class conflict between the western parts of many of these states and the eastern parts, which was the rural farmer populace against the merchant, the more educated merchants, some might say. And basically, their argument boiled down to the fact that because they were more educated, they used this unfairly to their advantage.
The classic anti-federalist argument was in regards to a Bill of Rights, and they argued that enumeration of powers to the government was not sufficient. And I believe that this has been to some extent today mitigated with the Ninth Amendment, because it states that all rights not specifically delineated in the Bill of Rights are cannot still be denied to the people.
To add on to my colleague Winston, I believe that the Federalists were actually right in their retort against the need for a Bill of Rights. They argued that in Federalist 84, that a Bill of Rights would actually be dangerous because it would allow the rights not specifically listed to be infringed upon. And this can be seen in Perry versus Schwarzenegger back in our home state of California, where the fundamental right of marriage is controversy today.
However, the Anti-Federalists went against this notion of not having a Bill of Rights, and this can be seen in John DeWitt No. 2, in which it stated that if the states have Bill of Rights, then the national government must too.
And to bring this all back to what the Anti-Federalists thought about the ratification process, we can see their demands being exemplified again in the Massachusetts Convention, whereby they forced the proposition of ratify now, amend later, also known as the Massachusetts Compromise, where they anti-federalists were convinced to ratify the Constitution, given the promise that Bill of Rights amendments would later be proposed.